Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Vivian Chen, author of the Noodle Shop Mysteries. I have my little obligatory plug right here. Today we are going to be talking about Killer Kungpow, which is number 6 in the Noodle Shop Mysteries. I'm excited to talk about this. There are some interesting developments that happened during the writing of this book and immediately following, which if some of you know what's coming. But first, some housekeeping things. Okay, so number 1, I want to apologize to, I believe there's 2 people that have not received their books yet. My schedule has been absolutely crazy. Some unexpected things have popped up along the way that have prevented me from getting your books out more timely. However, I will have them sent and shipped out before this video actually airs. I'm planning on going to the post office tomorrow. I have everything packed and ready to go. And hopefully you'll get it in about a week or so. Media mail is hit or miss. I've had some people recently tell me media mail has gotten better. About, like 5 or 6 days. They give us a window of 7 to 10 business days. So just keep that in mind as you are checking your mail for the books. And I will try and make sure that I give you the tracking number. There are 2 people that I forgot to give the tracking number to, but I did ship your books out last week. This is a lot more involved than I realized because I'm also doing other giveaways, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well. So for Killer Kungpow, the winner will be announced on May 15th. You have until 12 p.m. Eastern on that day to leave a comment. You must be a follower. You must be a U.S. resident in order to qualify. You just leave a comment. You could say whatever you want. 1 entry per person. I use commentpicker.com to pick the person fairly. Now let's talk about the audio copy. So in the last video, I did not get any international winners, or international comments, I should say. I didn't really advertise that I opened it up to international people like I wanted to, so there might be a lot of people that are not aware. If there are no winners, which I'm going to check after I upload this video, if there are no international people for the last contest, then I will open it back up. I'll put your names back into the generator, minus the person that won the physical copy, and then you'll win the audio copy. So that way it's still going to somebody. And I'll do that going forward. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is I've been all over the place. I'm trying to get everything going, and it's been interesting. The response for the videos is a lot more than I actually thought it was going to be. It is hard to get people to come onto YouTube and watch videos because, it can be time consuming and stuff like that, and there is a time limit, for the contest. So I do appreciate that. I also am doing giveaways on my Facebook, my Instagram, and I will be doing a giveaway soon on my TikTok. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm back on TikTok. I'm super excited. Current events had led me to want to return. And also I just wanted to get back on there, and surprise of surprise, I was monetized. So I'm looking forward to that. I did my first video on a blind date with your soul book. If you guys are on TikTok, check it out. If you're not on TikTok and you've been thinking about joining, I recommend that you do. A lot of readers messaged me privately and said that they were afraid of TikTok. I actually had a commenter in one of my videos say that she was open about it. She's like, I'm afraid of TikTok. Like, people are mean over there. I will say that there is a lot of stuff that goes on over there that isn't allowed on other platforms. However, if you come on my page, I will make sure that, I get rid of all of those people that say anything nasty. I recently dealt with something over there and made a public statement on all of my social media about anti-bullying. There were events that happened in my town that I'm not going to speak on in an elaborate way out of respect. It bothered me, and I'm seeing all too much of this type of behavior going on unchecked on the internet in general. And we need to protect our young people from being exposed to that sort of thing, because they are not at a mental place to handle it. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way to any younger people who may be watching this, because I was your age at one time and I remember what it's like. And you do think in some senses that you know everything and you've got it all figured out. And then you kind of have a rude awakening in your 20s and you realize that you didn't know as much as you thought you did. And I think that's just the way that it goes. I think that no matter what, each generation will do that. Each generation will believe that they know it all. And then they will reach a day, hopefully, that they will reach a day where they realize they don't. And that's the day when everything starts to click for you. I had mine. It was a rude awakening, and it felt like someone slapped me in the face. And I was like, wow, I know nothing about life, and it's difficult. It's difficult growing up, in general. It's hard enough, and I can't even imagine what it's like to have children in this day and age. So I do apologize to anybody who has dealt with this type of thing. It's very difficult, and my hat's off to all the moms and dads out there who do it on a daily basis. I have a lot of respect for you. So with that being said, if you are interested in going on TikTok, please do. There are a lot of interesting conversations going on right now that I feel are very important. Things are changing rapidly in the world, and we need an open place to discuss these things. A lot of the stuff on TikTok is out of box thinking. There is some of it on YouTube. I will mention that if you are a YouTube subscriber, you go check out the podcast channel Weaponized with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, and then you will understand what I'm getting at, because there are some people that are just not familiar. It doesn't cross their view, and I think it's very important for future events. So keep that in mind. And now we're going to get to Killer Kungpow. I think going forward too, because you guys are coming back every week, because I'm seeing the same names in the comments, which thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to start leaving a marker in the comments of where I actually start talking about the book. So if you want to skip all the, housekeeping messages and all that stuff, you can. Because really all you need to know, if you're familiar, is what day you need to have it by, which is always going to be on a Friday. So let's get into it. I always like to read the back cover, and I screwed up this week, you guys. I wasn't thinking, because today's voting day. So I had in my mind, I need to put on makeup, get ready, and, go out. And I didn't think to match my cover, so I didn't match. So little slip up there, but that's okay. That's only a fun thing that I like to do for myself because I'm silly. All right, so the little thing at the top there, the blurb. Is life at the Holy Noodle House becoming too hot to handle? Is it? Okay, Lana's plate is already plenty full. Running her family's Chinese restaurant in Cleveland's Asia Village is challenging on the best of days. But just when Lana thinks she might be able to catch her breath before the weekend, which she's eager to spend with her equally overworked boyfriend, Detective Adam Trudeau, Lana witnesses a car accident in the parking lot, and now she has no choice but to get involved. June Yi of Yi's Tea and Bakery is a serious businesswoman, well known for her heartlessness. But June meets her match when she rear-ends the Cadillac belonging to Mahjong lover Mildred, in quotes, Millie Mao. As each woman curses and threatens the other, it becomes clear to Lana that trouble lies ahead. Still, who could have imagined that Millie would end up dead at the beauty salon? The evidence suggests that she was electrocuted while having a foot bath, and all eyes are on June. Can Lana find a way to solve this case before another fatality occurs in Asia Village? Huzzah. You guys, this one was an interesting one. So I've talked about in other videos and recently in a live about how I come up with a lot of my ideas, and a lot of them come to me in passing that I don't know that I'm going to use that idea as anything. And where this idea of the execution came was one day I was sitting at the salon. There was a foot bath behind me with a nail lamp, like hovering precariously close. And my anxiety mind went right away to, like, what if that fell in the water while somebody was having a spa pedicure thing? You know, and I mentioned to my stylist, and she was like, oh, you know, because it wasn't actually on. She's like, we move all that stuff before anybody like gets up there, because it was like on a lifted platform. But my anxiety mind went, you know, when there was this one guy, it was, you know, I don't know if it was James Patterson or it was Nate Fillion. Fillion? I'm having a moment. Is that his last name? The guy that played Richard Castle. So I don't know if it was James Patterson or if it was, yeah, Nathan Fillion. That's right. When he was playing Castle. So one of them said something like, you use your fears to propel your stories, or like, you know, channel your anxieties or whatever. And a lot of the time I do that. I do that. And I always think of that in the back of my mind, that saying. And when I was first getting into mystery, you know, which I got into in my last video, it always stuck in my mind that that was a benefit of my anxiety. How could I use my anxiety to do something purposeful? And it was to create these stories where I could put the feeling of that fear into something, you know, and kind of humanize it in a way, you know, and I feel like a lot of people can relate with that type of thing. So, you know, that's where I got the idea for this book. In this book, you guys really get to know the Yee sisters. For any of my latecomers in the series who picked up with me later, you will notice I give brief detail about, you know, past happenings. So this may ring familiar for you anytime that I mention the bakery. It gets into the older generation, you know, not Lana's generation, not technically the old generation, but the generation previous to Lana. The Mahjong Matrons are a spotlight in this book. Some people told me that this book really solidified their love for the Mahjong Matrons. And people wanted me to do like side stories about them, which is always a possibility in the future. Right now, that's not on the table. But maybe in the future, I'll do a specific Mahjong Matrons like side story, kind of like how I did Hot Pot, or Gone to Hot Pot. So I saved some areas in the book that I wanted to read. Oh, well, I just saved one area, but I marked another area because I wanted to talk about it. So this was the book that people were asking me about Lana's hair, and they were asking me, do I fashion Lana's hair after my own? I do and I don't. So my answer to that question is I live vicariously through Lana. My hair is extremely porous, apparently, according to my stylist, and it has a hard time depositing color. I wanted to dye my hair gunmetal gray at one point, and we tried, and it failed miserably. I think if you go back far enough on my Instagram, you can actually see the photo of how it came out, and it was not very good. And, you know, she was like, that's a very hard color, and with your hair being porous, like, it will probably never look like how you want it. In the book, I have the same thing happen to Lana. So it probably was around this time that I was writing this that I had decided to add that story into, or add that into the story. So I must have been doing it at that time. And I start the book out with her sister arguing with her. So I'll read that and then I'll go to the other part. So it starts out, Anna Mae is talking. Lana Lee, you're the only person in this world who would choose to dye their hair gray. My sister Anna Mae said, scrutinizing the photo of a sassy model with the hair color I wanted for myself. I had been carrying the picture around in my purse for inspiration. Are you sure this is a good idea? First of all, it's not just any gray, I replied, grabbing the photo out of her hand. It's gunmetal gray. And second, of course it's a good idea. It's going to be my best hair yet. I ran a hand through my pink peekaboo highlights. The color was beginning to fade, and I was tired of keeping up with one of the weakest colors in the rainbow. That's actually true. Like, pink is very hard to keep in your hair. It's probably one of the weaker colors, and it fades real fast. Okay, that's a sidebar. I don't know why you can't just leave your hair alone. You've been on this bizarre hair dyeing kick for a while now. Don't you want to give it a rest before you damage your follicles any further? Anna Mae, who is slightly older and much more reserved than me, tucked a lock of smooth, glossy black hair behind her ear, exposing a dainty pearl drop earring. Her typical hair length was always just a little past her shoulders, except on the rare occasions when she broke out a curling iron. Everything about Anna Mae was classic. Her makeup was forever neutral and appeared almost non-existent. Her nails were either cherry red or French manicured, never anything beside the traditional white tip. And her style of dress often reminded me of things you might find in Jackie O's closet, but it worked for her, and I would begrudgingly agree that my sister was a beautiful woman. I, however, was the total opposite and staunchly refused to look anything like her. As previously mentioned, I like to mix up my hair color, and lately have been experimenting with more unnatural hues. My nails are whatever shade I feel fits my mood or the season, and my makeup, well, I own every color of eyeshadow that exists. As they say, variety is the spice of life, and I like a vibrant life. So that gives a little, every time that I mention Anna Mae in the books, I make sure to mention the contrast between the two. Anna Mae is the stereotypical perfect daughter. She does what she's supposed to do. She knows how to speak, their native language. She wants to be a lawyer, which is right up the alley of what their parents want for them. If you're not going to work at the restaurant, then you need to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. She's ladylike, she's proper, she's always put together, and here comes Lana, and she's kind of like a hot mess. Her hair is all weird colors. She's got chip nail polish, and it just really shows the contrast of the two sisters and how neither one can really understand each other. So that's a little added for you guys. Okay, and then, so the big deal about this book, I'm going to share this is the one time, and I reference this in other books as kind of like an Easter egg. This is the one time in the book history where not all four Mahjong Matrons show up. As you know, if you're a reader of the series, the Mahjong Matrons show up at 9 a.m. sharp every day. They file into the restaurant like a row of ducks, and they go to their booth that looks out into the plaza so they can watch everything. It is their post. They are never late. They order the same thing every day. You could set your clock by them. So here we go. This is after the situation takes place. At 9 a.m. sharp, the Mahjong Matrons arrive. You could set your watches to their punctuality, but to my utter surprise, only Wendy and Helen walked in. I greeted them with a pleasant smile, but also with curiosity. Where are Pearl and Opal? I turned my attention to the entrance where I thought they might have fallen behind. So Pearl and Opal are sisters, if you don't know. Wendy and Helen exchanged a glance. Helen replied, "They're not feeling well today." She left it at that, and they continued on to their usual table without further explanation. Outside of her love for gossip, Helen was an otherwise no-nonsense sort of woman. She was loud and assertive and often acted as the mother hen of the group. Doting on the others and making sure they were taken care of. I followed behind them, unsure of what to do. This was completely unprecedented. Since I had started working at the restaurant, all four women had always come in and ordered the same thing every day, without fail. Now with only two of them here, I didn't know the proper protocol. The four of them were like a well-oiled machine. each one contributing something slightly different to the mix and complementing the others with their various attributes. Not seeing them together as the typical foursome we all knew and loved made me wonder if the two by themselves almost felt as if they were missing a limb. They must have sensed my confusion because Wendy, the most sensible and patient of the four, looked up at me and said, "We will still be ordering the same thing, Lana. And we will also take some wonton soup to go for Pearl and Opal when we leave." I nodded and zipped back to the kitchen without saying anything. The situation had me at a loss for words. When I was sure the swinging doors were closed, I hissed at Peter, "Hey, guess what? The matrons are here. Yeah, I know." "No. Well, yeah, they are. But Pearl and Opal are missing." Peter dropped his spatula. "Really?" "Yes, really." I tiptoed around the counter, unsure of why I felt like I had to sneak around. Because, sometimes like when you're telling secrets, you like start acting like you're going to be overheard. "Helen said they aren't feeling well." "Wow, this is one for the books," he said with a chuckle. "So what do they want to eat then?" "Same thing, and then add a container of wonton soup for two to the order. They're going to take it to go." Peter picked up the spatula and threw it into the sink. "Do you think it's sad we're completely shocked by this?" "Not really," I replied. "I've never seen it happen. The planets must be out of alignment or something like that." He chuckled to himself and opened the fridge, pulling out the ingredients for the usual breakfast of rice porridge, pickled cucumbers, century eggs, and Chinese omelets with chives. As I prepared tea for Helen and Wendy, I pondered if the other two women were sad to miss their daily outing to Asia Village. Although surely the two present matrons would keep them fully updated on anything that went on in their absence. And that would include what I found when I returned out to the dining area. June's sister Shirley was standing in the lobby area near the hostess station. Another unprecedented event. Huzzah. As neither of the Yee sisters ever came into the Noodle Shop. Maybe Peter was right and there was a planetary shift that was causing everything to go bonkers. I signaled to her to give me a minute while I dropped off the tea with Helen and Wendy. The women thanked me with a gleam in their eye that told me they were fully aware that Shirley was on the premises. I'm sure both of them had their ears tuned in on our conversation. And then I go on and I describe Shirley and all that stuff. The chapter's almost over. So I'm just going to read you this little bit because I like the way that it ends because I'm a dork. Okay. Shirley was a little on the plain side. Really, both of the Yee sisters were. Shirley wore next to no makeup, often appearing pale and tired. Her salt and pepper hair was usually pinned up with plain barrettes, and the neutral-colored outfits she chose always hung loosely on her small frame. I greeted her with my customer service smile. "Hello, Miss Yee. How can I help you today?" "Miss Lee," she returned, bowing her head ever so slightly. Her hands were folded in front of her, and she rubbed one thumb with the other. "I was wondering if I may speak with you in private." The warning bells in my head went off. I could only imagine what she wanted to talk to me about. There weren't a lot of reasons for us to communicate with one another. I kept my fingers crossed that it had something to do with the upcoming sidewalk sale. Because remember, I layer the problems. I stack problems. So not only is she dealing with all this stuff, she wants to go, spend time with her boyfriend, but she's got to deal with like stuff at the plaza, murder and a sidewalk sale. Like, come on. Okay, anyways. Okay, upcoming. All right, glancing over my shoulder at the matrons, I said, "I'm the only one here right now, and I can't leave the dining room unattended for too long. Maybe you could come back later. Nancy will be here soon, and I could meet with you then." For anybody that doesn't know, Nancy is Peter Huang's mom. She's Lana's mom's best friend. She also works at the restaurant. She's a split shift. Okay, Very well, she replied, sounding a little impatient. "I will come back around 10:30 or so." Once Shirley left the restaurant, Helen waved me over. "Lana, what did Shirley want from you?" "She didn't say," I told her. "She wanted to talk to me in private, but I can't really do that right now. The two women nodded at each other, and I wondered at their unspoken understanding. Wendy rested a hand on the table and gazed at me with genuine concern in her eyes. Lana, whatever that woman has to say, please be careful. The Yee sisters are not to be trusted. So, that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, the dynamics of these relationships. Because again, a lot of my books are about the dynamics. You see, the Yee sisters and how they interact with one another and how they interact with other people in the plaza. It's very telling that the Yee sisters don't come to the noodle shop. You see that something is broken, right? Two of the matrons are missing. That never happens. And you also see the unspoken commentary between the ladies. I like to put that in a lot, that I am inspired by friendships that have that. Me and my best friend have that, and me and a couple of my other very close friends, we also have that, where we kind of look at each other, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You look at each other and you don't need to say anything. You know exactly what the other one's thinking. And so I like to play off that in the books, that these conversations are going. That's how well these people know each other, so it shows the closeness. And then you see the matrons kind of being, the honorary aunties, and being protective over Lana and warning her, like, hey, like, don't trust this lady, because they know her better, because they're all older. They're all part of the same generation. So that's where that goes. And there was a point in my book where I started to talk about being overworked. The funny thing about that is because I was feeling that. And I added some of my own feelings into the books as I went along, about how I felt. Like I talk in some of the books, I say that Lana doesn't read the news because she doesn't need that negativity in her life. And I feel that way myself. But this book, so I'm just going to, for anybody that doesn't know, that is new to me, this is the last book that I wrote before I was diagnosed with cancer. The day that this book came out, that was, it was published and whatever, like while I had the book, or while I wrote the book, I didn't have cancer, which is funny because someone left a comment and said that they could tell that I was ill because I wrote this one in, because I had cancer. And it was a huge knockdown for me, especially because when I read the comment, I was in chemotherapy. It was very terrible. And that's when I realized that reading comments reviews is not worth it most of the time. I do thank the people who leave me nice comments. I do see some of them, but I don't sit on Amazon and read comments. I don't read them on Goodreads, or any place else, unless someone points it out to me as like, hey, I wrote this really nice review about you. But I don't sit around and get my feelings hurt because somebody had a bad day. I'm a firm believer, and if you don't like something, you don't need to speak on it. Your silence says everything that needs to be said. And I've had a lot of interesting comments left for me in the past. But I did not write this book in, as they said. I was, however, overworked. I still had a day job at the time, and I would write at night. So I would work from 9 to 5. My drive home was about 45 minutes. I would walk my dog, and then by 6:30, I was at my kitchen table with mass amounts of coffee, and I would write until 11 p.m., then repeat the next day. And Saturdays were all day writing marathons. I would write sometimes 10 hours. So, I was really focused on mentioning the parts about being overworked because I was experiencing that myself. If you're an aspiring writer or just somebody who works a lot, I would recommend that you don't live your life that way. It's not healthy, and it will catch up with you at one point, one way or another. And I don't say that in a meanie way. I don't know the right word I'm trying to say, but I'm not trying to say that to like put fear out there or to any of that. It's just, I want people to learn from what I've done. And I see a lot of people out there overworking, you know, in our society. Overworking is applauded, you know. And I think it's more important to live life because it is very short. And I discussed that in another video as well, so I'm not going to bore you with that. And my time is up because I'm at the 30-minute mark. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching these videos. They mean so much to me. I didn't realize when I started this, I thought it was just going to be something fun to like grow my channel. I didn't realize how much it meant to me, because some of these books I didn't get to do signings for, and some of these books I didn't get to do author talks for, or my time is limited, or people ask me specific things. Everybody, you know, because it's a cozy mystery centered around food, everybody asks me about the recipe aspect, and I don't get to talk about what I feel, you know, because the questions are pointed, which is okay. I don't mind doing that, but I didn't realize how much I didn't get to speak on my own terms. And so this series that I'm doing for YouTube means so much to me. And it means so, so much to me that you guys are coming back every week and you're watching my videos and you're commenting. And I love your thoughtful comments. I love getting to know you guys. It's a lot of fun. I feel like we're building something together, you know, like this. You guys are getting to know a little bit more about me, and I'm getting to know more about you. And I really appreciate it, and I love it so much. So leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. If you are international, do not forget to put internet, like type international at the beginning of your comment and then go. Just because that'll make it easy for me to see, and I can make sure that you get isolated properly in commentpicker.com. So thank you guys again. I hope that you had fun listening to my tales of the Noodle Shop today. If you're not a follower yet, obviously you have to follow in order to subscribe. You have to subscribe to qualify. But, you know, find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Come say hi. You know, let's have discussions and fun. I provide different things on all the platforms, so I hope I see you there. If nobody told you today, my friends, I think you look fantastic.